Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most controversial and dangerous topics in modern military technology, Russia's so-called superweapon, Warship, that many experts have started calling a floating Chernobyl wreck. This story is not about power, but about peril, and how one of Russia's most ambitious naval projects has turned into a symbol of decay, danger, and desperation. Russia has always loved to present itself as a global naval power. From the glory days of the Soviet Navy to the recent boasts about hypersonic missiles and nuclear-powered submarines, Moscow has tried to project an image of unstoppable might, but behind that propaganda lies a disturbing reality. Many of Russia's so-called superweapons are plagued by poor design, outdated technology, and catastrophic safety risks. And one ship in particular has become the perfect example of that failure, the Admiral Kuznetsov, Russia's only aircraft carrier, which has been dubbed a floating disaster, and by some Western analysts, a Chernobyl at sea. The Kuznetsov was supposed to be the pride of the Russian Navy. It was launched in the late 1980s, near the end of the Soviet era, and was meant to rival the American Nimitz-class carriers. But from day one, the ship was cursed with endless technical problems. Its engines leaked fuel constantly, its plumbing froze in winter, and its outdated design made it more of a liability than an asset. Instead of being a symbol of power, it became a symbol of neglect. Even before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Kuznetsov was rarely seen at sea. It spent more time under repair than in active service. Every attempt to modernize it turned into a disaster. In 2018, the ship caught fire while in dry dock, killing several workers and damaging its power systems. Then the dock itself, Russia's largest floating dry dock, sank under its weight. It was an omen of how unstable and unsafe this so-called superweapon really was. Since then, Russia has poured billions of rubles into trying to restore the Kuznetsov, but progress has been painfully slow. Corruption, sanctions, and a lack of advanced components have crippled the repair efforts. According to recent reports, the carrier still suffers from serious engine and electrical failures. Its air defense systems are outdated, and many of the radar components used on board are no longer produced domestically. In short, the ship is a patchwork of obsolete Soviet-era technology, rust, and wishful thinking. What makes the situation even more alarming is that the Admiral Kuznetsov uses a propulsion system powered by heavy, toxic fuel oil that produces thick black smoke visible for miles. Naval analysts often joke that you can spot the Kuznetsov before you can detect it on radar, simply by following the dark cloud of pollution trailing behind it. But the problem isn't just aesthetic or environmental. The ship's engines are unstable and prone to leaks and fires, combined with the poor safety culture in the Russian Navy that makes the Kuznetsov a floating time bomb. In recent years, Russia has attempted to sell its image of advanced naval technology through new warships armed with hypersonic missiles, like the Admiral Gorshkov frigate. But even these new vessels face severe limitations. Many of them are built with imported components that Russia can no longer access due to sanctions. Others have suffered from engine failures and poor reliability during trials. In essence, Russia's naval modernization program is built on sand. It looks impressive on paper, but in practice it's crumbling. The Admiral Kuznetsov's condition reveals a much larger truth about Russia's military, industrial complex. It is trapped between the legacy of Soviet engineering and the corruption of the modern Russian state. During the Soviet Union, there was at least an illusion of industrial discipline. Today, most shipyards are plagued by corruption, mismanagement, and outdated facilities. Skilled engineers have left for better jobs abroad. Replacement parts often have to be cannibalized from other old ships. It's a vicious cycle that has turned maintenance into a nightmare. Many experts have raised alarm about the environmental danger the Kuznetsov poses. Some have even compared it to a floating Chernobyl because of the risk of toxic leaks, fires, and possible explosions. The ship carries large quantities of hazardous fuel and chemicals, and its poor condition means even a small accident could turn catastrophic. In fact, during one of its past missions, the ship spilled so much oil into the sea that nearby NATO vessels detected it from miles away. It's not just a danger to the crew, but to marine life and coastal regions as well. Despite these warnings, Russian propaganda continues to call the Kuznetsov a superweapon. In official statements, the Kremlin portrays it as a key asset in projecting power in the Mediterranean or the Arctic. But the truth is that the ship has never successfully completed a full combat mission without breaking down. During its only real combat deployment in Syria, the ship lost 2 fighter jets due to malfunctioning arrestor wires on its flight deck. Instead of intimidating the world, it became a global meme. What's even more ironic is how the Russian government continues to invest in this relic while the rest of the Navy deteriorates. Most of Russia's surface fleet consists of aging Soviet-era ships, some of which are over 40 years old. The new frigates and corvettes that were meant to replace them are being built at a snail's pace. Sanctions have cut off access to critical Western navigation and engine technologies. The result is a Navy that can't sustain long-range operations and depends on old, unsafe platforms like the Kuznetsov. It's not just incompetence, it's also arrogance. The Kremlin wants to maintain the illusion of being a great power. To do that, it needs big, visible symbols like an aircraft carrier. Even if that carrier can barely float, it serves a political purpose. The Russian public sees it as a source of pride, but for the rest of the world, it's a reminder of how far the once mighty Soviet Navy has fallen. The contrast between propaganda and reality could not be more striking. Inside the ship, conditions are dire. Reports from former crew members describe constant leaks, electrical failures, and a lack of proper safety equipment. One sailor described it as living inside a metal coffin. The ship's internal systems are so outdated that many of its gauges and instruments still use analog dials from the 1980s. The air filtration system barely works, and the fuel fumes often make compartments unbearable. It's a dangerous place to work, even in peacetime. Another layer of irony is that Russia often mocks Western militaries for focusing on advanced drones and stealth systems. But those same technologies are exactly what Russia lacks. The Kuznetsov, by contrast, is a symbol of the past, an outdated weapon of a bygone era that Russia keeps alive for the sake of appearances. The United States has 11 nuclear-powered carriers capable of deploying anywhere on Earth. Russia has one unreliable, smoke-belching relic that can barely reach Syria without a tow ship. Even the Russian media, usually controlled by the government, has struggled to hide the Kuznetsov's repeated failures. When the ship caught fire in 2019 during repairs, the blaze burned for more than 12 hours before being contained. Video footage showed thick smoke rising from the deck, an image that quickly spread across social media. Officials tried to downplay the incident, calling it a minor event, but satellite photos later revealed significant structural damage. Every repair has led to more problems, and every delay adds billions to the cost. Western analysts believe that Russia's obsession with keeping the Kuznetsov afloat is more psychological than strategic. Losing it would be an admission that Russia no longer has a true blue water navy. It would be a blow to the image of a global superpower. So instead of scrapping it, Russia keeps pouring money into it, trying to keep the myth alive. But myths don't sail, they sink. The nickname floating Chernobyl isn't just a metaphor. The ship's engines use highly toxic materials, and its waste management systems are dangerously outdated. In case of a serious onboard fire or explosion, the release of pollutants could contaminate large areas of the sea. Unlike Western navies, which follow strict environmental protocols, Russia's navy often ignores such risks. That makes every voyage of the Kuznetsov a potential environmental disaster waiting to happen. Russia's current war in Ukraine has made things even worse. The shipyards that were supposed to work on the Kuznetsov are now struggling under sanctions and shortages of imported tools. Many of the workers have been drafted into the army. As a result, the ship's refit has been delayed repeatedly. Even Russian defense officials have admitted that the Kuznetsov might not return to service until the late 2020s, if ever. Some insiders whisper that the ship might never sail again, but no one dares to admit it publicly. While Russia claims it's developing next-generation aircraft carriers, these are nothing more than computer-generated models shown at defense expos. There is no budget, no shipyard capacity, and no industrial base to build them. The Kuznetsov remains the only option, and its failure highlights the collapse of Russia's military, industrial capability. Without Western technology, without stable funding, and without skilled engineers, Russia's naval dream is sinking just like its floating dock did. The story of the Kuznetsov is more than just a tale of one ship. It's the story of modern Russia itself, a nation clinging to past glories, crippled by corruption, and unable to move forward. The ship's endless breakdowns mirror the systemic rot in Russia's institutions. Its thick black smoke is a perfect metaphor for the toxic mix of denial and decay that defines the country's leadership. In the end, the so-called superweapon, warship, is not a threat to the West, but a threat to its own sailors. It's not a marvel of engineering. It's a warning of what happens when propaganda replaces competence. A warship that was once meant to strike fear into enemies has instead become a global punchline. It floats, but barely. It sails, but only under escort. It survives, but only because the truth would be too humiliating to face. So when you hear Russian officials boast about their unstoppable military technology, remember the floating Chernobyl wreck that can't even leave port without breaking down. The Admiral Kuznetsov stands as a monument not to strength, but to the failure of a system that values image over safety, corruption over progress, and delusion over reality. And as long as it stays afloat, it will continue to remind the world that sometimes the most dangerous weapons aren't aimed at others. They are aimed at their own creators.